That's Chris Winter's son. Daniel, he bowled a 300 at Chelmsford.
Yeah.
300 game, perfect game.
And
There's Dominic, world best.
He's done about 50 300s. If you know, that's 12
unbelievable.
strikes in a row.
I heard you did a
one
300.
game.
Did you do 300?
Not in tournament, no.
I haven't either because my bowling.
299,
Very close.
298.
We all remember our best score, don't we? Mine was
Yeah.
255, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we progressed to county level, and
Even further.
once Essex was in the local, so we'd be playing against Kent, Suffolk, Cambridge. And so each round, there'd be a round at Walton.
But we'd have 3 bowlers or 4 bowlers in the county team.
All
quite
from
regular.
Walton Pier. So
you'd have a 2 or 3 from maybe Dagenham to join up.
Southend, maybe Southend.
And there was a good system where you got handicapped, so it was a bit like golf. So the better you got, the lower your handicap. So if you were a middling player, then you had a good handicap added to your score. If you're up against a sort of high-scoring, really good player, so it kind of equaled out the fact that you had a few extra pins to your score
So I could
because
play
you were up
you.
against a high-scoring player.
Yeah.
You'd start ahead, and I'd try and catch you because you're handicapped.
And the
Which is fair
handicap
enough.
system, is supposed to make everyone on a level playing field, and a lot of the time it did work.
It did.
But that's what
Now and
handicap
Well,
system's for, isn't it?
Joan Sullivan remembers vividly that in a competition, and she was a really modest bowler, but she beat one of the top players, Robin Garton, who was most upset the fact that he was beaten by such a relatively, sort of junior standard bowler. But it was a handicap, of course, that made her score bigger than his.
It's like 1 out of 100.
Yeah.
She could do it. She wouldn't be able to do it 99 times, but that one. But then that gives the others enthusiasm to actually
Yes,
play.
so it wasn't the same people all the time, at the top of the game. If you bowled above your average and you had a good handicap, you had a good chance. A top bowler, they all have their off days.
Exactly.
Well, every week you played a different team, so for 8 weeks you won't meet that team for that 8 weeks.
Yeah.
The same individuals and that.
I heard some rumours about the etiquette of the bowling alley. Can you tell us something about that? So, for instance, I heard that they were quite strict on rules about what you were allowed to look at. When did that come in, and why was that happening?
That was that?
It's early. It was with the long hair and no leather jackets.
No leather jackets,
We
no
had
long hair.
We had a doorman, and this was what
Yes.
Mike Goss said, wasn't it? He said, no one with long hair, I think it's over your shoulder. And
Over your
leather
collar,
jacket.
I think
Oh,
it was.
collar, yeah, it might be collar. And,
You weren't allowed to have
And-
hair over your collar.
Why was he
and
saying
leather
that?
jackets.
To try to be
well, I think in them days, I think it was a bit...
Well, if you think
Was
of the
it a bit like
mid-60s, it was the sort of mods and scooter
Rockers.
boys and,
Exactly.
rockers.
But it worked. He was
It did
still
work,
backed out.
I mean, we all moaned about it a bit because we all wanted to have a bit of
Yeah, a bit of hair. and
long
that.
hair when we could because we were young.
We had a funny guy, Robin Garton,
Yeah, well, he actually
come down with a...
he tucked all his hair up underneath a short wig, and that was quite amusing for a while. But yeah, we all had a run in with the the powers that be at some point,
Yeah,
didn't we?
I don't know why he changed it. I don't know.
Well, it kept.
It kept it as a really tight club.
That's the family atmosphere of the place. So
Were holidaymakers able to come and use
Yeah,
the
yeah,
field? Was
so-
it
yeah.
exclusively for locals?
no, I mean leagues. There were a few morning leagues, not many, and most of the leagues started from sort of 6-7 o'clock at night. So during the holiday period, during the day it was open to all comers, but they were given guidance about how to. There were certain rules and regulations. You just couldn't
But
go on a lane and start throwing a ball without having some.
you had a
sort
bit of
of-
coaching, I think.
Yeah.
And I think I worked there, and they didn't really know what to do or whatever. So I just showed them slightly. Get your right fingers in.
Yeah,
Just
simple 4-step at 1, 2, 3, 4. Let the ball go. The simple route.
don't go over the line.
There was a lady called Mrs. T that was here. Was she
Yeah.
someone that was like a... Was
She's
she a coach?
Yeah, she got very high
Yes.
standard coach. She actually coached the first coach. I think was Dominic.
And Chris Winter was the
Yeah.
guy who pushed her, and he said to her, "You could become a good coach." And it's quite quite a long process, and I think she got to
It
sort of
was.
level 4. I might
Yeah,
be
she got the
wrong,
highest level.
but yeah, very well,
She
very
used to
high
take
up.
Dominic down there, and they used to bowl, and Dominic wouldn't come off the lanes till his fingers were bleeding. That's how much Mrs. T really got
Yeah,
to him, and
yeah,
whatever. And that's what he's
Look
made
at
of
him
now.
now, yeah.
yeah.
You know, it's
Because
again,
after a
like I
while,
say,
your
practice.
hands started to get, you know, like I remember the calluses
Yeah.
because of the action of the ball, and your knuckles would get a bit
I mean,
worn
I-
down. And
It's funny you're talking about this because I said to Maria the other day, I said, look, my thumb is now the same as the other one. It just was so deformed.
It didn't used
Through
to-
bowling, your nail would be all over the place and
Yeah.
calluses everywhere.
Yeah, calluses on
Now
calluses.
it looks like a normal thumb.
Did you have was there a outfit for your team? Like, do you remember what the Walton colours
Oh,
were
yeah.
for the league? What did
Yeah.
you used to wear?
each team had its own like livery, usually with a
Yeah.
sponsor's name on the back, or
Christ, yeah.
just
Every
their
team.
own
We
design.
had some
Yeah,
funny
every
ones.
team. We had our own team, and they were sort of red shirts with
Yeah, red. We've had
Walton Pier Pro Shop.
when we went to the
If we were
Silver Cup,
representing the bowl,
we had
but
a-
every
yeah.
league, most teams had their own. You know, if it was a 5-person team league, they all had the same shirts on, and there'd be, Chris would get all the shirts in, and then they'd have to be sent off away to be embroidered, and yeah, it was.
So you'd have your name embroidered on.
Yeah, and what your high scores were, and
Then you put your
That's a couple
badges
of
on your
lines,
shirt.
the
So
different
if,
badges. Yeah.
if you got high scores or good series, you could have your badges plastered all over your shirt.
Mm.
I think
We just mentioned Dominic Barrett, and I mean, at what level is he now? Is
He's
he?
top 10 in the world. He's just played a tournament, it's the US Open. I think he bowled 56 games in 3 days and came 7th. And he wasn't far off. He had to get in the top 5, and then he could win $100,000, but he didn't, unfortunately.
He has one other competition.
Yes, but he has won that competition, and he's out there at the moment in America, making a living, if he can make a living. He's had to spend 6 months of the year at least not seeing the wife and the little boy.
it's one of those sports that
Well,
it takes you away.
yeah, we were every weekend.
Yeah.
Didn't matter, we'd be somewhere.
And
And
I like a lot of not novelty sports, but those sort of sports. When we were growing up, I mean, we all had girlfriends and whatever, but if they were bowlers, it helped
yeah,
because they understood better.
Yeah.
You understood what I mean.
my wife still don't understand.
What are you doing this weekend? Well, my girlfriend said, "Oh, we're going to this party in a nightclub," and I said, "Well, I'm bowling for the weekend, so you better move on." So that was that. But it was life,
And
it was our life.
I brought, where I was working, I suggested to for a social event away from work, I suggested people come down the bowl because it was what I did half the week. And they were all very kind of bemused. They were from Clacton mostly. And, but these were people older than me, and, I was just a junior in this office. But it was like you wanted to spread the word and introduce people and get them interested.
I think we were very, very proud of the establishment. We all thought
It
we were
was
so lucky.
immaculate,
We
wasn't
were really lucky to have
It
it.
was immaculate, clean,
Yes.
well kept.
I mean, we used to go to all other bowls like Dagenham and
Well,
don't
yeah.
compare them to ours and think, well, it's not quite as looked after, it's quite as well as ours. But there you go. It was.
And
That's
then,
what it was.
and then what led to the demise of the bowl?
Life.
Change
hours.
of ownership
The-
didn't help.
The last
Um,
owners didn't really listen to the league bowlers. They didn't want league bowlers in the summer. So once you lose someone, it's hard to get them back. So 6 weeks without bowling, they're probably doing something else then. So that's how they wanted to go. They thought it was a bit run down and that, but
Everything has its time.
I mean, 10-pin bowling had peaks and troughs, so there was the 60s, early 70s, like Paul was saying, where it was really very popular. There were building bowls all over the country. Then I think probably maybe the late 80s
Started to fall
started
off.
to drop off.
Yeah.
Economic background probably had something to do with it.
Yeah.
Um,
And other things that, modern technology
Well,
had
yeah.
taken over. Young kids wanted to do other things, and bowling wasn't one of them. And so that's, once you've taken the young element away, it doesn't progress forward, and the elderly bowlers that we are now, obviously you retire, and if they're not replaced, it shrinks.
Like you've got the youngsters there.
Yeah.
I used to bowl every Saturday morning with Keith, bless him, not here anymore.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah, well, like the juniors
Well, so
were
it's
like a
fine.
nursery for moving into the senior leagues. So it was very clever, really.
Yeah.
And of course, for the young people, it was a great activity. I mean, in Walton, you had the Sea Cadets, or basically 10-pin bowling. That was your options at weekends or a sort of recreation.
This is Walton.
What's great is there's still a big network, isn't there, of bowlers and bowlers' friends, and you have quite regular reunions, don't you? So actually, even for this latest book launch, there was a room full of people who you've known for years.
And we hope that will continue. And
Probably more regular.
on a yearly basis.
2 years, wasn't it? 2 years ago, and then this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to try and do it yearly now. Yes, and thanks to you, my darling.
So memorable.
You've been right behind us.
People made friendships there. There were, I reckon, once I collated a lot of information, there were at least 10 couples met and married from there. Because, a bit like working in the same office or playing tennis or whatever, but, so it really touched a lot of people in many, many ways, socially, as well as, in other ways.
I can remember, just picking up a couple of leagues that I used to bowl in, and you turn around and there'd be like 150 people actually in the bowling alley, either at the coffee shop or playing the fruit machines.
We had done the match play, the first match play, Chris, I invented. You couldn't move.
No, and it's a big area. The original bowling alley, you could probably get 400 people in there without even batting an eyelid. And
those weekend championships, I mean, you could hardly move in the public space, let alone what was going on in the bowling lanes. And the place was absolutely rammed.
And the bar, as you walked in the door, the bar was on the left-hand side. You walk, and it's just piles of bowling balls and bowling bags, and there wasn't hardly any room for people because you couldn't get in the bowling alley with your bags. So everybody just used to put them in there and park them, didn't they?
Yeah.